Well, thank you all so much for coming to this session and for coming to this event in general. I know that I'm already learning so much. I can't wait to see how it all goes as we keep going. My name is Haley Halverson, and I'm Vice President of Advocacy and Outreach at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in DC. Just a little bit about our organization. We do a lot on policy, and we focus really on the intersectionality between different forms of sexual exploitation, recognizing that we can't solve prostitution or sex trafficking without talking about pornography, and we can't solve child sexual abuse without also understanding the context of violence against women. So that's just a little bit about our lens.
And my name is Anna Patak, and so I've worked with them or partnered with them for like, I don't even know, years now. And they've been, we say Ecozy because National Center on Sexual Exploitation is kind of a mouthful. Can y'all hear me? I feel like this thing is like not working. Okay, good. And so I'm kind of like the Indian version of Legally Blonde. So, because people will meet me and they're just like, how does law and fashion tie in together? Are you like so unfocused? I'm like, no. I'm just so talented that I don't. So I have worked with different ethical brands, and I launched a fashion collection, New York Fashion Week, that employs the overcomer survivors in Nepal who come out of sex trafficking, and so giving them a job, things like that. So I continue to partner with different brands. On the flip side, I also do a lot with law, and I help draft policy, things like that, lecture at different universities, develop trainings and best practices for prosecution. So those are my two main things. Also, if you see me wiping my eye all the time, I promise I'm not crying. This eye just waters all the time. So yeah, just heads up. Because I had someone, they were like, were you crying the whole time? Oh my gosh. I was like, no. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a nutshell what I do.
You're moved by your own presentation.
Yes, that is presentation.
So as we all know, the internet has changed everything. We don't need to belabor this point, but exploitation and abuse used to happen on the streets, in the homes, in hotels, and now, while it's still happening in all of those places and more, the territory for sexual exploitation and abuse has expanded to also include the online environment. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about sex buyer online communities, pornography, online grooming, online ads, and hopefully a little bit more. So I think that we're going to try to cover a lot in a short period of time. So I have just been finishing up my master's at Johns Hopkins University, and as my thesis, I did a content analysis of 875 sex buyer online reviews. Before I get into that, just a little bit of background. If any of you have not seen the new research out by Demand Abolition, I really encourage you to go look at it. It's amazing. It was just launched a few months ago. It's on their website. Their survey found that about 20% of men in America have bought sex at some point in their lives. Now, that's not everyone who factors into that percentage are repeat buyers. Repeat buyers who are really driving the market is much smaller, I think 6% or less. And then of that percentage, an even smaller amount are actually participating in online review boards. Does everyone know what online review boards for sex buyers are? Okay, these are basically like Yelp for having purchased a person for sex. So this is where men will go and they will talk about their exploits, share information about girls. They're forums kind of in the style of Reddit. So my research is I went and I analyzed 875 of these reviews from the city of Baltimore. For those of you who haven't been on one of these sites before, they're very depressing. When you get onto one, you first sign up, you click a little box that says you understand that it might be offensive or illegal in your state. So I'm like, sure, go in. And there's every state in America, and then you can click on a state, and then you can click on a city. And then once you're in that city's review board, you see all of these different threads. And now the threads that I analyzed were the 5 most popular in the city of Baltimore, which I just chose because it was near me. So I analyzed their terms, not mine: streetwalker reports, backpage advertisers, massage parlors, and strip clubs. And another thing about these sites that's just interesting and goes towards the point of intersectionality between different forms of sexual exploitation is that all along the sides are pornographic ads, typically for pornography websites, such as pornography websites that are in the style of Snapchat. A few ads for Ashley Madison, which is a cheating website. All of the women portrayed in these ads were Caucasian, most of them blonde. The only racial minority that was on there at the time that I was looking were Asian women, and that was specifically for Rub Maps, which is just another online review board that's solely focused on illicit massage parlors. So I chose USA Sex Guide because that is one of the largest. Anyway, and just to reiterate, the majority of sex buyers are not on these forums. Peter Qualentine, who was with OPS Men's Accountability Program, said this is a minority of buyers. They're typically difficult to engage. They're really focused on creating a community of exploitation, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So I went through and I started putting these into categories. About 47% of the reviews were camaraderie based. So that's things like saying, go get them, stay safe, congratulating them on a certain exploit of a young woman. And about 21% of the reviews were non-emotional reviews of the women, such as this one I have right here. Don't let her or any provider tug you around. You have the power in the situation. So what I think is important to recognize about the non-emotional reviews is that it's just further reinforcing the idea of purchasing sex is like purchasing a commodity or having a waitress at a restaurant, and I just expect them to give me good customer service, and that's it. And then 7.5% contains degrading comments. All of this is degrading, I think we can agree. But those are specifically comments that were saying, oh, she was really bad at this or that sex act, she was too old, I didn't like her, blah, blah. And just to also add on that this number is very skewed to be on the lower side because they have an automatic shadow ban on any words that are derogatory towards women that are more explicit, so. Please.
Yeah, so I think it was Manita touched on one role that men can do. Again, I try not to talk men as a whole, so I'm going to say the men involved in this type of situation is that like changing that language, changing that verbiage on how we talk about women, I think is really, really important. And so this is an area that men who do buy, not all men who do buy, this was something that the men who don't buy can change, just the verbiage, the things you're talking about, because when you see this kind of research, it shows that that is a huge contributor to the online type things, just in general, you know. Like, I think about my husband, who's great, and everything, and just, I see the way he talks about women, and then the abusive relationships I've heard talk about women, talk about like what you hear, hip-hop music, things like that, and a big reason that our marriage is the way that it is because of the way he talks about women, even when I just met him and we weren't even dating. That was kind of a good thing. When I was like, oh, you talk positively about women. Yes.
It makes a difference.
Regardless of your faith, it's an important thing and can change a lot.
Absolutely. We also found that about 5% noted that the individuals that they were purchasing for sex struggled with drug use. Of course, we understand that drug-induced prostitution and drug-induced sex trafficking is a big problem of exploitation, and that 4% contained really clear warning flags for sex trafficking. So that includes statements like, I was drawn to her by how young she looks. You almost would think that she isn't legal. She looked just like a schoolgirl. Or another person said, fairly sure all the girls there are on the deportation list, and not just the I'm off to America to make more money type, but the I got traded type. Now, what's really important about this is that whenever these red flags for trafficking come up, no one else in the comments sections are saying, hey, that's a problem, maybe you should have called the police. In fact, this person who said that he went somewhere, and I believe these were Colombian women that he was speaking about, looked like they had gotten traded, the only comment underneath this statement was, how was she? Okay, the only comment that they have to this is not about the safety of the women, it's about how was she, because that other guy was also considering going to purchase sex from these individuals.
Again, a commodity.
A commodity. And an online community that's not only accepting, but even encouraging and being willfully callous to the reality of sexual exploitation that these women are facing. So I think it's very important to see, you know, people will say, well, what about the good sex buyers? What about the good ones? They would never knowingly purchase a person who's sex trafficked. No, they don't care. They're just there to get what they want.
And wait, are we going to go into the brain part later, or why? Okay, yeah, and a big reason is people are like, why do women become a commodity? Why do, you know, they become so, you know, desensitized to this kind of thing? And what people don't realize is that when you watch porn or things like this, your brain responds the same way that when you do drugs. And so basically, say you start out with weed and you're just like, oh, this isn't giving me a fix anymore. I want to do cocaine. Oh, that's not helping enough. I want to do heroin. So it's a big contributor the same way with like buying sex, and how porn fuels demand, and how this is, you know, this is a result of those kinds of things. So meaning that, you know, someone is watching porn and then the porn becomes more violent because the, you know, I hate to say like soft porn because all porn is not great at all, but yeah, you want more violent. Then you're like, okay, watching this isn't enough. I need to buy a person. Then you're like, oh, well, I bought a 17-year-old, but they're just not getting it for me, so I'm going to buy a 15-year-old. And that's why we're seeing more and more of these, well, not that it's more common, but more exposed as far as like why we're getting those younger ones, like the babies and stuff. And so this also contributes to this issue where, you know, they aren't a person anymore, they are a commodity. So if you are in like medicine or want to understand kind of how this happens, that's the way. Think about the chemical, clinical process. So people, when they talk about these kinds of things as a faith perspective, it's also a clinical issue as well.
Yes, and we'll even have like a whole section that's talking about how pornography and sex trafficking specifically overlap, but as a little bit of a preview to that also, on these reviews, I definitely found so many people who are taking videos and photos of the women that they're purchasing in sex and uploading them on mainstream pornography websites. So I think it's just very important to recognize that most pornography websites, to some extent or another, feature real-life footage of sex trafficking victims being exploited that are then used by men around the country. And if someone's regularly watching pornography, they cannot guarantee that they have not seen those images.
And I just want to add something. I probably should have said at the beginning it. But if anybody is a survivor, overcomer, and any of this is, you know, triggering to you, you can step out, no judgment, anything like that, because I know some of this stuff is a little bit in depth. I'm sure Shay or someone else will be there for you to support you. So no judgment. If you do have to step out, you say I have to use the bathroom, but just want to let you know that that is an option and that we welcome that kind of boundary that you need to set.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not even going to read some of these quotes. Disgusting. So lastly, when I was putting together this research, my professor said, well, what about the good sex buyers? You're only showing the negative side where they're talking really negatively about women. I heard that sometimes some of these sex buyers really care about the women and they're trying to help them get out of the life. So I searched really, really hard to try to find something. This was the one comment I could find. And it was a guy saying that he's going to start a F them and feed them campaign for some of the girls. And then he went on to describe how he had purchased a woman for sex, but then bought her a sandwich afterwards, and how he felt really so good about himself in that circumstance. So this was the best guy I could find on these sites. Yeah, so there's... Okay, so some key takeaways on this section. Again, it's a significant minority of sex buyers who are actually, a significant minority of the sex buyers in this were regularly purchasing people across different mediums, outside, inside, on the street, off of online ads, in massage parlors, from strip clubs. And so I think that that's just important to recognize, is that these are not completely different markets. There is overlap. Sex buyers were, of course, unconcerned with elements of coercion, and also just this reality that we're seeing with the online internet that there are these forums that are encouraging the creation of further extremism for terrorism. We're seeing online communities that are encouraging racist extremism. And we're also seeing online communities that are encouraging sex buying and sexual exploitation of women and all individuals more generally. So just seeing the fact that these communities exist, I think, is important.
Can I add something?
Yes, you can.
And something that her research is absolutely incredible is that remembering that there's also boys who are bought for sex as well, and they play, and I know several of them, and they're so amazing. The fact that they really push through to tell their stories in a world where abuse is seen as often as a woman's issue and whatnot. And so thinking, just don't forget to include them as well in, like, when you're thinking about these issues, because we were focusing more on one, but it's just a comment I wanted to make to kind of support her research as well.
Absolutely. And now, Anna, would you like to speak about the use of pornography?
Oh goodness, okay. So, basically we're talking about how it fuels demand here, and because a lot of people, because I didn't go through prostitution, mine was pornography. And I'll tell people my story, and they're just like, that's not trafficking. Well, those people initially who think of Taken, the most amazing, accurate movie on human trafficking,
I heard it's a documentary, actually.
Yeah. This chick in the airport, this woman in the airport, I was behind her in the Starbucks line the other day, and at the airport, she's like, where are you going? I was like, we're in Philly, and she's like, what are you speaking on? Human trafficking. And she's like, oh my gosh, so everybody is kidnapped. And I'm just like, no, but I like your dress. No. And so I try to make this, it's a very serious issue, but at the same time, you do have to have that room, to laugh in such tough topics. But yeah, so, you hear that a lot. People think, oh, kidnapped, and you're like, no, and you have to explain that. And then when I talk about pornography, and they're just like, wait. They do not connect. They do not connect at all. And I'm like, yes, they do. And so people hear my story and they're just like, that's not trafficking, that's porn. And I'm like, well, it can be a form of human trafficking. Okay, let's move on with that. So, but it also fuels the demand. And what this means is so traffickers may use pornography to teach and groom them to, to groom them and do these things. So porn may be seen more as acceptable, or they're kind of training them to do these sexual things, and they're like, okay, this is cool, or okay, I see how this is acceptable or normal, or how I want to please you. And then after that, they start prostituting them, I don't want to say on the streets, but outside of that kind of situation. And it just grooms them and it trains them. So grooming would be more kind of like using it as far as a way for traffickers to get what they want. Pornography can also be a form of like I said, where you're training someone with what to do, maybe become more normalized, and then they do that. But then we also talked about how the pornography addictions or struggles can fuel the demand because, like I said before, what the brain does and how people become desensitized to all of those types of things, resulting in people continuing to buy humans all the way down to infants. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, definitely. So just to reiterate, we have many studies showing that sex buyers use pornography more often and for more violent and risky forms of sex. And that also a Swedish study found that the more frequent pornography users were more likely to have sold and bought sex than other boys at the same age. It's interesting that they were more likely to have both sold and bought. And I think what that really points to is that sexual fantasy is rehearsal for real relationships. And when we have engaged so much in fantasy that is focused on exploiting another person or commodifying sexuality, then that just breaks down some internal inhibitors that prevent people from going that direction.
Yeah. And it also, this thing, I don't think this thing works. Can you hear me if I talk? Okay, there we go. And so I know with, like, it's, dang, now it's really loud. I can't win. It's also something Haley and I were talking about in our calls preparing for this. Like, sometimes what'll happen is not only will porn addictions cause traffickers to be desensitized to selling people, also TV shows. For example, with mine, the great Howard Stern show, whatever, is where he found a bunch of his ideas. And so what he saw on that was kind of like, okay, let's try this out and see how it looks. Let's try this out. And I remember a cop was there. Not all law enforcement are the problem. I want to reiterate that. But this one was a part of the problem. And he was like, oh, this is entertaining. Let's get her to do this or this or this. And again, it was porn affecting that person, but it was also when they're watching these TV shows and stuff like that, how it's, you know, affecting that behavior or that choice to do that. Meaning him, not me.
This is just another example of people bringing pornography in and using that really as a menu to choose from in demanding certain sex acts.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Right, and then, I mean, really, something that I like to say a lot is that sex traffickers aren't stupid. They know that you can only sell one body over and over and over again, unlimited amount of time, but that when you make pornography of that exploitation, that is something that you can sell indefinitely. And it then also acts as advertisement for your real life experience product.
And I'll also add on that for people who who are new to understanding law or like not aware of a lot of things. It doesn't always have to be sexual intercourse. It can be commercial sex, ranges in a lot of different things, and you can think about what that would mean. But also just remember that even if they're not doing sexual intercourse, other forms of commercial sex could also fall under this category. So when you're thinking about it, I don't want you to think like one way. Like we were saying, they're smart. They come up with different things. So just to kind of give you an understanding of how commercial sex is more than one form of sex.
And I think, could I just use the mic for a second?
It's also important to recognize what pornography is. That pornography is prostitution for mass consumption. The only difference between pornography and prostitution or trafficking, when there's force, fraud, coercion, etc. involved, is that there's a camera there. That doesn't change what's happening. So I just think that's always an important thing to keep in mind as well. All right, so now let's talk about sex trafficking, social media, and grooming. So at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, we recently met with 3 young girls who are survivors of multiple years in sex trafficking in DC, and they were 15 years old at this time that we were speaking with them in their recovery. And yes, and we had permission, and also their caseworkers were there with them, inviting them to have this conversation with us. And they started just talking to us about Instagram. And they said, we get messages from dozens of guys every single week on Instagram. And we're like, well, so just put your accounts to private. And they said they are. Our accounts are on private. But on Instagram, that doesn't stop you from getting unsolicited direct messages. And all of these messages were from guys asking them for nude pictures, for nude videos, to meet up, just trying to start flirting with them so that they could then move the conversation towards those topics. And they just started scrolling, and it was like an infinite scroll of men in their direct message inbox. And they started talking to us about how often when girls are leaving schools, Guys will stand literally outside the school or maybe at the 7-Eleven that's 1 or 2 blocks away and just start talking to the girls, just start trying to build a relationship with them. But always what they do after maybe the first or second time of meeting them is they say, hey, what's your Instagram? Let me follow you. And let's be honest, being a young girl today in the age of social media, everyone wants more followers, everyone wants more likes, everyone wants attention on social media. It's what our culture at large is grooming us to value and put our identity in. So these girls will accept, and then becomes the direct message, the direct messaging becomes the place of grooming. So this is very different than it used to be in the past. It used to be someone would just meet them and all of the grooming would take place in person, but now that's not true. It's almost a large percentage of it, especially for younger girls and boys, is happening on social media. And what we're seeing here too is that there's almost a disintegration of the organization in sex trafficking in some of these circumstances, because it's not all sex traffickers that are addressing these girls in the direct messages, it's sex buyers. It's sex buyers who go and they'll follow one girl who looks young in her profile picture, and then he'll follow all of her friends, and then he'll follow all of their friends, and just start sending out these mass messages until someone responds, and then he can start grooming them. So we're seeing that the sex buyers themselves are becoming groomers and initiators into sex trafficking. And as these girls shared, often the sex buyer would even groom them online, exploit them for the first time, and then would drive them and drop them off on the track where all of the traffickers are.
The track, yeah, is another word for, the track, for people who don't know, is an area that's very common with prostitution and trafficking. I will say, I don't know what this guy was thinking, but he messaged me, a few of them, on Twitter, like this, and I was like, why are you picking me? Did you not read my bio or look at my tweets? I was like, of all people. So sometimes I would keep the conversation going just to kind of see and whatever, but they would stop the second they were smart enough to actually read at least one of my tweets. Is crazy, but yeah, it's just like, here, let me see the phone really quick. It's that easy. It's this easy. You think about it, especially the kids, like she was saying, how many times do your kids take a selfie and then them and some friends, or they get someone else to take their picture, and it's, they're at a concert, get someone else to take their picture. Oh, like she said, why don't I just follow you so I can see the picture? Things like that. So you have to think, smartphones, how many times do your children use it for something that involves another person, like following, taking pictures, stuff like that. So, sorry, that was my phone, by the way, so she didn't fall for it.
Right, so we are seeing that, of course, all forms of commercial sexual exploitation is happening everywhere, but the internet, it's a growing spot for it. And as I said, social media is removing the barriers between grooming these victims for abuse. And let's just talk vulnerability for a second. What young girls aren't vulnerable to a guy who probably at least looks attractive in his picture, telling her that she looks beautiful in a direct message? And she doesn't know that he's also sending it to 20, 50, 100 other girls waiting for a response. Do you want to talk about these?
Yeah. Yeah, so like we said, this is about grooming and things like that and meeting them. It's kind of what I touched on before. And sometimes what people don't know, especially in gangs and things like that, if they do it online, so they might use children to recruit them, things like that. And then they're like, hey, let's meet in person. And then they build that trust, they build that relationship, and then it becomes, something that, prostitution or whatever, because traffickers are so smart at getting these girls or boys to believe that they're in a relationship. And even though there's other girls or boys working for them, that, this is what they're supposed to do. They believe that this is a reality. And so yeah, like you said, online first, and then just think about, I can't tell you how many people I've networked with through social media. I got connected with them through social media. Thank God they're not weird. It'd be really bad. But a lot of people, my merchandiser, I met them through Twitter. thank God they're not crazy. But it's like you think about all these kids who connect with someone and they feel so special. And like I just had this really awesome, incredible nonprofit follow me, and I was like, oh my goodness. Imagine a teenage girl or boy who wants to fit in at school and it can't, but this person they've met makes them feel that way. And like she was saying, these days, connecting through a screen is just, it's a part of our culture, and we have to be thinking of ways to eliminate trafficking and prevent trafficking through the culture we have now.
Right. So one professional who is reviewing these issues said it feels less about the app specifically and more about the person's vulnerabilities. I think when I get a friend request from a person I don't know, it doesn't even occur to me to start a relationship with someone that way. But I have a different background than many of these women. The risk is high because they're often looking for someone who can nurture for them, and it makes them vulnerable, exactly what Anna was just saying. And another thing, as this professional says, is that social media provides traffickers, exploiters really of any kind, with a great insight into their target's state of mind. It is a gold mine for doing research on a vulnerable individual that you want to reach out to and potentially exploit. And they know how to do that. So we see that they can look at someone's social media feed and see, okay, this person is not feeling loved, this person is feeling disappointed, this person wants freedom, I just want to be treated like an adult. What 13-year-old hasn't posted something like that? Someone saying that they want to be successful. Someone saying, my parents don't trust me, I need to get out of here, I wish there was a way to make quick money. And suddenly, this is something that a trafficker can respond to with a targeted message specifically towards that child's state or adult's state of mind and personal issues at that point. Saying, I think you're beautiful, I'll make your life better, I have a way to make quick money, etc.
So I know we're focusing a lot on pretty much everything on social media here, but don't forget about video games. Video games, the chat rooms. I was on my husband's PS4 and I was trying to watch Netflix or something, and then all of a sudden this message popped up. And it's just someone random. And they were just like, hi, I need someone to talk to. And I was like, I called my husband, I was like, who is this person? He wouldn't cheat on me. Hopefully. I was like, who is this person? He's like, I don't even know. I can't even remember what the username was, but they were like, I need someone to talk to. And I just played along. I was like, oh gosh, what's going on? They're like, well, how old are you? I was like, I'm 17. And they're like, oh, I'm only 19. And I'm like, so what's going on? And they just kept talking. And then they were like, so, do you want to do a virtual game together or something like that? And then I was like, yo, you're stupid, just leave me alone. But it was just like, again, think about your kids. These video games, Xbox, PS4s, things like that. As a parent, your role is to protect. And nowadays, parents can get yelled at for giving their kid too much wheat bread. It's crazy. But the role is to protect. And I'm not a parent of human children. I have 2 fur babies. But I can't imagine how scary it is thinking about your kids with all these vulnerabilities, but don't forget to think about video games, because isn't it like Fortnite's been a huge recruiting game for kids, and it's, again, direct relationship, and it's just normal for these kids to do that.
Yeah, really anything with direct messaging is a big problem. This is not a talk on prevention, but this study just also put out some trafficker repellent messages that I thought was great to see, saying things like, I trust my family, I talk to my family, I'm successful in my life right now, I know that I'm loved. These are the kinds of messages that we need to be teaching children, helping them internalize in order to help be trafficker repellents. And of course, stalking has never been so easy. It's so easy to not only find someone, but track their movements and know exactly where they are at any given moment. And so I want to go through really quickly on these points because I think we all understand in general, like psychological coercion. People think that trafficking is always going to be force, as in physical force, but This says 40% of cases involve psychological coercion. I think it's more like 100% of cases involve psychological coercion. These really mental chains, false proclamations of love, establishing superiority, manipulation to meet a social need. These are age-old grooming tactics that haven't changed, but they're just manifesting in a slightly different way online. And again, the book Pimpology, for sale on Amazon.com, is a great book about how to be a pimp and how to exploit women.
Funny story. So I was doing my legal internship. I'm not an attorney, like I said, but I would make a great one. And so I was doing a legal internship at a courthouse, and of course my college card decides to break down in front of a porn shop. There is no other freaking store around, of course. So like I have all this anti-human trafficking garb in like my back seat. So first I put that in the trunk because I was like, I don't know what I'm dealing with. I walk in, the first thing I see is a Pimpology book. Like that book was right on their counter. I didn't want to go through and look to see if I saw my friends in the pictures, but I saw that book. I was like, come on. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. So if that tells you how it's desensitized or where it is, Amazon, first thing you see in a porn shop. So if you're like, oh, this is kind of an old book. No, it's still used. That was like, what, 3 years ago or so? 4 years? So it's still being used.
Yeah, absolutely. So these, how to become a sexual exploiter is not a difficult task, and there's plenty of education out there for any self-starters who want to go and start doing that. But just to point out, in his rules, a lot of what he's talking about is get into her head, prey on the weak, play them against each other, etc. Just this constant theme of psychological manipulation. And of course, we see that researchers say that possessive ownership control is very similar to the isolation and stalking tactics by domestic abusers. And what a problem we have with that. I mean, we talk a lot about the fact that most individuals who are being exploited in sex trafficking will not identify as a sex trafficking victim. Also, the same way that many people in prostitution won't identify it as being exploitation while they're in it. The same way that wives of abusive husbands will not admit and cannot admit to themselves psychologically that they are abused while in the middle of that exploitation. Okay, last section, I promise we'll get going quickly. So online ads. Who here knows about the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act? Good, great. Okay. This is an amazing law that just passed in April, and I'm so excited that it passed. We still have a ways to go. Who here knows about Backpage? Backpage.com, 99% of their profits came from ads for sex, typically prostitution and sex trafficking. They raked in millions of dollars. They had ads across the globe. Everyone knew that sex trafficking was happening on Backpage.com. 51 attorneys generals wrote about it. Politicians were speaking about it. Survivors were really leading the way on this fight, but nothing was happening because of the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, which is an old law that was actually originally created to protect children from pornography online. But the Supreme Court said that a lot of it was not constitutional, so they stripped away a lot of the bill's language and left behind Section 230, which says that any website that is posting third-party content cannot be held liable for the content of that post. This makes sense in some circumstances, right? So Facebook probably shouldn't be charged with hate speech because the comment section can get really nasty on some posts. That's not Facebook's problem. But it should be a problem when a website is knowingly facilitating sex trafficking ads in order to profit off of them. This was a big fight for anyone to agree on, especially because big tech was dramatically opposed to it. Thankfully, near the end, we got some partners who were in the tech community to come alongside of us, but really big tech hates any kind of added liability, and so they did not want this law to pass. But thankfully it did in last April. So this now means that websites that are knowingly, still a high legal standard, facilitating sex trafficking and prostitution ads can be held liable. So that's basically what this is saying. So, since this passage, the online community of commercial sexual exploitation has gone into a state of flux. Web-based platforms that promote these ads experienced an initial 60% reduction in ads due to decreased demand. Now we're about a year out from that, and the online website ad community is starting to bounce back. They're going to be testing the waters. They're going to see how well law enforcement enforces this new law. So they're still starting to come back, and that initial drop is starting to recover. But it's always good to disrupt the marketplace of sexual exploitation, I think. But as these ad websites are just starting to come back, what we saw initially was a very quick migration from online ads on websites towards ads on social media, which again were always there, but suddenly we're seeing a huge spike in online ads on social media. So one place is Twitter. Twitter is full of ads for prostitution and sex trafficking. You can find individuals by different hashtags. You can find them by seeing who follows who, and it's actually just terrifying how quickly I got these pictures in like 2 seconds. And we're also seeing that, so these are ads not only for meeting to hook up individually in person, but also there will be ads for pornography and for live streamed pornographic images as well. And something that's really important there is that we're also seeing how Twitter is incorporating Snapchat. So people will post on Twitter asking people to follow them on Snapchat, and then they pay a premium to follow them on Snapchat and get nude images and nude photos. So we're seeing that these different platforms are being used to market each other. And of course, it's so easy to find a lot of these ads, whether or not you're finding them specifically from individuals that are advertising them on Twitter, or if you just do a quick search, you can really easily find these. And I actually have a slide on this later, but I just want to say it now because I feel like it's more effective, is that these images and like pornographic live streams and everything, there is no way that anyone can know that those individuals aren't being trafficked or coerced into doing those live streams. And people will say, well, they're running their own social media, they're sending out the tweets, and their picture is in the profile picture, so they're autonomous. We don't know that. With Backpage, many women and girls were forced to post their own ads by their trafficker. Traffickers are smart. They'll tell the girls to post it themselves. And these young girls who we spoke with about Instagram talked about how on Instagram live stream, they would be forced to do nude acts and everything on the live stream, and the trafficker would be off camera in the corner, watching them to make sure that they're doing it and that they're smiling about it and that they're saying they're happy and so excited to be there. So I think we can't assume that these images are being autonomously put out there.
And I was going to add kind of, sometimes when people, if you're new to this topic and you're just thinking like, what makes these kids even think that this is, you know, kind of acceptable? You look at, one big reason I fell for stuff, and this was back in the early 2000s, before all social media existed, thank God. If you did do it through social media, I'm so sorry if that was offensive. But like, what was I gonna say? Like, oh yeah, how celebrities, what they do, you look at some top ones who have a reality show, pretty sure everybody knows who I'm talking about, and they came out with like these perfume bottles that is like their body, but then like now all these celebrities are wearing next to nothing, and they're posting it on social media, and it's like now it's like the less clothes you have on as a celebrity, the more sexy you are, whatever. But you think, just also remember that that's a contributing factor to why
kids on social media are just like, this doesn't seem that weird because look at what everybody else is doing with like twerking and all these other things. And now that my perspective is different, when I look on social media and I see that, one, I just want to comment and be like, what are you thinking? Like, don't, but then again, people save comments and then post it everywhere and, you know, stuff like that. But also remember how people posting on social media are contributing to this problem and fueling as far as like what girls and boys think is acceptable to post. So don't forget that element too.
Thank you. This is not specifically about sex trafficking, but I think it's just helpful because we have to, as advocates or law enforcement, we need to start thinking more outside the box about the way that social media is being used to facilitate sexual exploitation. Were any of you aware of the pedophile ring issue on YouTube most recently? Okay. This was a very fun rabbit hole that I had to go down. Basically, YouTube got in trouble because there are these videos of young girls doing young girl stuff. They're not exploitive or graphic videos. Sometimes they're girls trying on swimsuits because that's a trend on YouTube, is to do hauls and just show off your outfits. Sometimes that includes swimsuits. Some of these videos are of little girls doing gymnastics in their backyards, of little girls singing along to the latest pop song and jumping on their bed. Not inherently exploitive. But what happened was these videos of girls who typically would maybe only have 20 views, maybe 40 views per video, suddenly the one where they're trying on a swimsuit has 100,000 views. Suddenly, the video of a young girl jumping up and down on her bed, when there's a split-second moment when you can see her underwear, has 1 million views. And in the comment sections, there are so many men making sometimes extremely sexualized comments about these young girls. So this problem is facilitated by the YouTube algorithm that will just continue to recommend more content for you based on the content you started watching. Just to be clear, I got to this video in 2 clicks. Look, knowing that this is the stream that I wanted to get into. That then led me down this rabbit trail of an infinite number of these kinds of videos. And again, so these people would comment in extremely sexually aggressive ways, sometimes asking for the girl's Instagram account so that they can follow her and maybe start talking to her. They would often comment, let's see if this is on the next slide or not, they would comment time tags of the split second when you could see up a girl's skirt. A split second in a video, and they're commenting the link so that you can immediately go and see that moment, right? So, and of course, there's also networking happening then in these comments of people saying, of these like pedophiles, child abuser, whatever term you want to use, networking with each other, saying who has videos like this, and then they're sharing their WhatsApp information, so that, or their Telegram information, which are these encrypted messaging apps, so they can go on to share similar content to this, but most likely more hardcore, extreme child pornography. Also, these videos are being monetized a lot of the time, so that's problematic. And then also, I found this one where someone said, oh, can I promote you on this website that I'm not going to say the name of, but it's basically a stripping music promotion site where girls go on and take off their clothes in order to promote someone's music. So we're seeing that this actually is putting these children at risk to the point that they could even be recruited into the commercial sexual exploitation industry, let alone just being abused by any of these guys trying to contact them on Instagram. So again, this isn't specifically sex trafficking, but I think we just need to start being more aware that people are being really creative in how they are identifying and grooming victims. Right now, YouTube has a temporary fix where they're removing comments on most family videos completely as they're looking for a better solution, but it's still an ongoing problem.
Yeah. I'm trying to start a YouTube channel, so that's like not exactly ideal, but I understand the message behind it. So she was talking about stuff with like encrypted messages. If you are a parent, something to look out for is like the Kick app, these different like Viber maps, things like that, that people can talk to where the conversations are completely deleted, because traffickers can do that. And I remember I was working on a case, and they didn't have much to go on because they had used those apps. One trafficker was not very smart, and this is how they got him. He was emailing back and forth with the girl, and he deleted it, but he didn't know about the trash box. I was like, really? So everything, not always that smart. They were able to prosecute him based on that. So yeah, he was special. Not special, dumb. I don't ever want to say a trafficker is like special in that reference. But I will say that if you do see these kinds of apps, just, keep in mind, watching your eyes, or keep an eye on your kids, just to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. These messages, like WhatsApp, which has come under fire for child pornography sharing, which of course, child pornography is child sexual abuse images, real life evidence of child sexual abuse and often trafficking. And then also video sharing, Periscope, Tagged, TikTok, sometimes Musically is a music-based app that children are using.
So another interesting story. My brother-in-law went to college, freshman year, first roommate. He comes back from fall break. His roommate's gone. He's like, where the heck did he go? Turns out he was arrested on 7 counts of sexual exploitation by tricking a minor to send nudes through Musically. And my brother-in-law didn't want to tell me because he's like, really, of all the people, you have to pick me with the sister-in-law who does this. And I was like, what? Like, it was crazy because this kid came off so great and so nice, and he did it before he lived with my brother-in-law, but it goes to show you that Musically can be used, and it turns out that there may be other victims. They're trying to continue to prosecute the case. But what's also very disappointing is somehow he got a job at a movie theater, which is around kids, whatever. But again, the presumption of innocence. But it was just sad that I ran into him and I was like, how's the case going? Really, I wanted to like punch him in the face, but whatever. Presumption of innocence. And he's like, I'm just gonna get some probation, it's fine. And I was like, my husband, he had to pull me back because he's like, don't make a scene, don't make a scene. And I was just like, really? And he just grew up thinking this stuff is normal. He's like, I'm gonna get some probation, it'll be fine. But for a first attempt with if he has a clean record, he could at the max face 12 years, but he was just like, it's gonna be probation. So again, seeing how these kids see these apps and these interactions, they're so normalized and just either unaware or normalized with the culture, things like that. So that's another example. It was crazy.
Of course it'd be me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the fact that I deleted before we came here a slide that was to this point, that often these nude videos or images are used to sexually extort those individuals then into further offline abuse. That's just a commonly accepted fact, and I could get you research on that later if you want it. Okay, this goes back to the point that I said earlier about many of these individuals are being actually forced to create live streams, webcam pornography. And again, social media blurs the already porous line between prostitution and sex trafficking. You can't tell if it's autonomous or not. So, this is very depressing. What can we do? There's a lot that we can do. Of course, talking to our kids about online activity, if they're talking to people that they don't know online, that's 101. And being aware that exploiters can, especially if someone has been abused, that exploiters can easily track them via their cell phone and social media. You can speak on these.
Okay. Yeah, so something that people ask is, like, I was in high school and my stuff was going on, and I had a very broken family, all the normal things that traffickers prey on. And some people ask, where were the men in your life at that point? Like, were there any good male role models or anything like that? And I was like, no, there really wasn't. And so I think that we were talking earlier about how men can help and who are part of the solution, that stepping in and being a really good male role model. Does that mean you're like locking the girls at home, saying you're grounded for life or whatever? No, just showing them what that healthy relationship can look like between a father figure if you're mentoring, you know, kids, like really being that solid role model, I think is a big way for prevention. And things like that. And talk, I know the sex talk is awkward for parents, but just finding ways to incorporate in your conversation about healthy relationships, sexuality, what intimacy really is. I mean, I'm not talking about like sex, but just saying like, what do these intimate relationships, what they should look like. I never had any of that. I think I learned everything pretty much through the media, like a lot of teenagers that do. And yeah, like, again, they were talking about this on the panel, and here's another tangible way that men could get involved is, again, large amount of women have a struggle with pornography, but also a lot of men, and we're very blessed that we're connected with an organization called Covenant Eyes that has a software. They have resources and things like that on how to talk about this kind of thing. Again, it's Covenant Eyes, that's the name of the organization. And they have a lot of resources on that. So not being afraid to be bold and, you know, coming alongside other men and saying, we got this, like, let's stay strong together, things like that. So I was trying to think of anything else I want to say. Yeah.
Another great way that you can take concrete action is you can email public@ecozy.com. That's us, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. If you would like to be involved in any joint letters towards social media companies, particularly Instagram and Twitter, to really get them to invest in actually solving these problems. The fact that you can have your Instagram set with all of the parental controls and it's on private and strangers can still direct message you is a problem, and they need to fix that, right? There's concrete things that Instagram and Twitter and others can be doing, and we actually are in the process right now of scheduling a meeting with a policy director at Instagram. So if you could email us, you know, the sooner the better. Everyone who's in this room is someone that we would want on letters like that to let them know that survivors, subject matter experts, law enforcement, everyone here cares and thinks that they need to make this a bigger priority. So please email us. For other people who aren't in this session, tell them about it and get them to email us too, because we've had a lot of success with this kind of activism in the past. We've gotten Google to stop linking ads to pornographic websites. We've gotten Facebook to make certain improvements. Snapchat has actually finally created an in-app ability to report accounts that are sexually harassing you, which guess what? They didn't have before. That was a problem. We asked them to fix it, and they finally did. We got the Department of Defense to take pornography out of Army and Air Force and Navy bases. We got Hilton Worldwide, Hyatt, Intercontinental Hotels, and Starwood Hotels to stop selling on-demand pornography in their hotel rooms, which one trafficking survivor told me was incredibly significant to her because she was being trafficked during the time that that change took place, and her experience was always that she was brought to a hotel room and someone would order pornography on the screen and then force her to act it out. And she said that it was that when corporations change their policies to make less space for commercial sexually exploitive or sexually exploitive messages in any circumstance, it let her know that she wasn't alone and that maybe people out there saw and understood what was happening to her. So when corporations make these changes, it actually does make a difference. It provides hope. It changes our cultural narrative. So please email us because it actually could make a difference.
I'll say something.
Yeah. They actually, how awesome are they? Like, blows my mind. Yeah, they have this thing called the Dirty Dozen list every year, and they kind of tackle like 12 different places, and that's where they not attack, but addressed all of these different issues. So I'll just tell you, from interning with them and partnering with them, they're the real deal, and this is a great starting point. There's Dr. Cooper, and stuff, and this woman at the other end, she's really awesome. She's a forensic pediatrician. Her name's Dr. Sharon Cooper, and she needs to text me back, but she's just amazing, and everything. So yeah, they have that Dirty Dozen list every year, and they are doing very quality work, and I've seen it in different ways of working with them. So I really encourage you to connect with them. And then they've got their summit. I spoke at it like 4 years ago, it was before I got married. And it just seemed the way they incorporate the survivor overcomers into this work. So if you are with that background, they welcome you with open arms, and they've been very good to me, very, very good to me, and things like that. So I'll let you also talk since it's your summit.
Yeah. Please come to our summit if you're interested. It's in DC. It's June 12th through 15th. It's focused really on the intersectionality of sexual exploitation. So we talk about sex trafficking, pornography, child sexual abuse, prostitution, sexual violence against women and men, etc. And we do have, it's endexploitationsummit.com. We do have scholarships available for survivors. If you're interested, email events@ecozy.com.
So when I went there, again, they're doing quality work, but when I was there, you know, when you go to these anti-human trafficking conferences, you tend to see the same people, which is great. Become like a family, you're fighting for the same thing. When I was so when I was there, like, there weren't that many people from the anti-human trafficking movement. And I would tell Dawn, their vice president, about people. She's like, I've never heard of that person. I've never heard of that person. Because we didn't see the connection of the two. And so we need people like you guys at this conference, because there are so many different organizations focused on only pornography, and they need to hear the human trafficking side. And now they've created this platform and this conference, even at that point, but it's like, we need more people who are really knowledgeable on this subject, because like you said, the intersectionality is really important. So I definitely encourage you to attend. It's fantastic.
So I guess I just want to leave us with a message of hope that, you know, we're here to defend human dignity. And although this is really depressing stuff and it can feel really overwhelming because it comes at us from so many different angles, while exploitation has expanded its territory online, our territory of defending human dignity has also expanded to go online, whether that's through online activism, sharing messages of prevention, sharing education, etc. We actually do have a place in the online environment to make a difference. And so while the online world brings many challenges, I think it also brings a lot of hope and a lot of chance for meaningful activism and change. Do you want to end us out?
I don't even know. Yeah, no, it's great. So you can contact either of us. This is our social media handles and our emails. Please feel free to contact us. And everything. We have resources for men and women. We have resources for families, things like that. Another really great website to check out is called Fight the New Drug. And they are also another really great resource. I meant to mention them earlier too, and we both are like huge fans. But yeah, if you have any questions, need any resources, please, please, please contact us. Don't be afraid. There's no stupid question. It is just there. We want to help you. We want to be there for you and help you thrive, as the last one said. So yeah.
Well, thank you all. I don't know what our time is. We might be dramatically over or dramatically under. Do we have time for Q&A?
Anybody?
What time is it?
It is 11:50. Oh, so we have
We have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Oh.
I need a microphone.
Sorry.
So we can give her this one. Okay. There we go.
I'd appreciate your advice about a situation where you know a young woman who is on Facebook posting provocative pictures of herself, you know, provocative bathing suits, the kind of things that you would see in Playboy, you know, 30 years ago. I'm aging myself. But I see these, and this is a young woman I don't know well, but what do you do? Do you call her mother? Is there anything that you can do to say, this kind of thing could happen?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't know if there's any one answer to it. I guess I would probably just say that those conversations it's best to have in the context of relationship and of close relationship, where it's understood that an individual cares about the other person and that it's not coming from a place of judgment, but that it's coming from potentially concern for security. So I think that would be all that I would have to say towards that. But so whether that's, if you know another individual who's maybe closer to her, that's all that I would really have to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say being a friend, not a creepy friend, but a friend, and just building that relationship. Because I've had different parents reach out to me about stuff, and I was receptive to them out of respect. Did I necessarily change everything? And I'm not talking about the way I dress, but like just different things. Not always, but you're doing the right thing by being a friend and reaching out where appropriate. And I think as a friend to them, the conversation might flow a little bit normal versus like, I need to change this person, what the heck are they doing? And I mean, if you are close with the mom, maybe give them a call and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you asking that question versus say, I saw your daughter and she had this, kind of thing. Just be like, hey, I saw what are your thoughts on it? And they'll be like, I'm fine with it. They'll be like, okay, well, here's my opinion, kind of thing. So, yeah. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
One more question. Oh, Sarah.
Hi. Something I've been thinking about a lot is, even since when I was younger, in the last 10 years, I've seen a lot more popularity, especially with like 50 Shades of Grey and the Twilight movies of like BDSM. And I was wondering if there's been any research about how that has affected the vulnerability of people who are seeing this to be more susceptible to kind of coercive and exploitative and violent sexual happenings.
There has been some research. I don't know that there's been a lot, but what's coming to mind right now is not necessarily about BDSM, but it's generally a study that showed that a lot of really traditional romantic films and pop culture both normalize domestic abusive relationships. And this is even really pertinent right now because a new movie was just put out into theaters this week called After. And After is a story that, very similar to Twilight, it kind of came up out of the fan fiction world and got a book deal and then got a movie deal. And while that book does not interact with BDSM, it does really portray an abusive relationship as a romantic ideal. So it includes violence, it includes stalking, it includes manipulation and intimidation, and young girls are reading this and thinking, and literally, I actually know someone who was a camp counselor at the time that this book first came out, and young girls told her, I want a relationship like that someday. And if we don't think that those kinds of cultural messages aren't going to spill over into increased vulnerability, whether that is for a domestic abusive relationship, for sex trafficking, any other kind of exploitation, then we're kidding ourselves. So it is important, the messages that our culture puts out about relationships, and particularly when they're highlighting unhealthy dynamics. And there's not really a lot of mainstream conversation about that, unfortunately, but it's very important. And there are some studies that point to that as well.
I didn't have anything else, but am I able to say like a few words, things like that? Okay. Okay, so I want to put this in really quick because I see so many men in here, and first off, I want to thank you for your work to try to be, or not to try to be, but your goal to be a part of the solution. I just want to say from a survivor to you, thank you so much, because you play a huge part, and I never want you to think that we have to change this narrative where we're talking about men as a whole and just, saying, oh, these men who buy. And I'm like, not everybody is a buyer. And I so appreciate what the ladies say here, but I just want to add thank you for that. And just a few ways you can get involved specifically. You can email us. This has nothing to do with the talk. You can teach. I know we're trying to do equality and stuff like that, but men are known for being good with cars. Contact a safe house, say, hey, I'd like to teach an auto class on how to change tires and stuff, helping them be more independent. We had a guy in my program who taught an art class, things like that, talking with these nonprofits to see where do you need men, how can I help that's going to help them grow and heal, and things like that. There's also a strip club ministry called Treasures in LA, and Harmony's Dust is incredible. And they go into the strip clubs. The women do, the men don't go. but the men drive the bus to get the women who are going to the strip club. So they stay out there in the bus and they wait. But they played a really important role by getting the women who are bringing gifts for the girls in strip clubs to build that relationship. So that's another example of how men can get involved in an appropriate way. But it really comes down to contacting the nonprofit, saying, hey, where can I get involved that's appropriate and promotes healing, and things like that. So those were examples that were in my program that really helped. We had men who came and taught lessons just on like Bible teaching. And you're gonna have girls in there who are, church people hurt them and stuff like that. But again, you can find appropriate ways to be a part of the solution. So I just want to thank the men who are in here. You are incredible, and I am so, so grateful for you to be here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can't wait for lunch.
Yeah.